Chapter 3. When Corey arrived at school the next morning, Anna Corwin was the first person he saw. It was raining hard, a freezing rain driven by gusty winds. He ran into the building through the side door, his leather jacket pulled up over his head. His wet sneakers slid across the floor, and he nearly collided with her. Oh! He grabbed the wall and stopped. He pulled down his jacket and stared at her. Her locker was the first one next to the door. She was pulling books off the top shelf and didn't seem to notice that he had nearly run into her. She wore a white sweater over a gray skirt. Her hair was tied back behind her head with a white ribbon. She's so pale, he thought. It's like I can almost see through her skin. Suddenly, the young man's raspy voice on the phone came back to him. This is the Corwins, but there's no Anna here. Well, here she was. What was that guy trying to prove? Why had he lied to Corey? Maybe it was a jealous boyfriend, Corey thought, or maybe Corey had dialed the wrong number, and the guy was just pulling a mean joke. Hi, he said, swinging his book bag down off his shoulder. A stream of water poured from it onto his already soaked sneakers. She turned, surprised that someone was talking to her. Her eyes, those amazing eyes, looked into his, then quickly looked down. Hello, she said. Then she cleared her throat nervously. You're new, he said. Brilliant line, Corey. Wow, that's a real winner. You say 2 words to her, and she already knows what a dork you are. Yes, she said. She cleared her throat again. Her voice was little more than a whisper, but she seemed pleased that he was talking to her. Your name is Anna, right? I'm Corey Brooks. That's a little better, Corey. Just calm down, man. You're doing okay. He reached out to shake hands. He had to touch her, to know for sure that she was real, but his hand was dripping wet. They both stared at it. He quickly brought it back to his side. Nice to meet you, she said, turning back to search for something in her locker. You moved on to Fear Street, right? It was almost time for the bell to ring, but he didn't want to leave her. It had taken so long to find her. She cleared her throat. Yes. You must be pretty brave. Have you heard all the scary stories about Fear Street? About the ghosts and things? Ghosts. Her eyes grew wide, and her face filled with such sudden fright, he was immediately sorry he had said that. She seemed to grow even more pale. What kind of stories? Just stories, he said quickly. Not all of them are true, I don't think. Nice going, Corey. Was that the only thing you could think of to say? How feeble can you get? Oh, she said softly. The fear didn't leave her eyes. She's so pretty, he thought. Everything about her is so soft, so light. His dream about her came back to him. It made him feel a little embarrassed. Hey, Corey, looking good, some guy called to him. He turned to see who it was. It was just Arnie, giving him the okay sign from down the hall. Later, Arnie, he called. He watched Arnie go into the wood shop, then turned back to Anna. I called your house last night. I just wanted to say hi. A guy answered and said you didn't live there. Did I have the wrong number, or... No, she whispered, closing her locker and locking it. Then she turned, without looking back at him, and ran down the hall, disappearing into the crowd of kids heading to homeroom. Good mat routine, Coach Wellner said, giving Corey a hearty slap on the back. Corey, still breathing hard, grinned back at the coach. He knew he had done a good routine, but it was always nice to hear it from the coach. Mr. Wellner, a stern, powerful-looking man with a bodybuilder's physique, even though he was in his late 50s, was sparing with his compliments, so when he said something nice, it meant something. Behind them, the match against Matawan, the first match of the season, continued. Corey looked to the bench for David, wondering if his friend had witnessed his near-perfect routine. Then he remembered that David had sprained his ankle at the last practice. David was somewhere up in the bleachers feeling sorry for himself and being miserable. Now, don't press too hard on the rings, Coach Wellner warned. You've been pushing yourself, trying to go too fast up there, and it's been throwing you off your rhythm. Yeah, Corey said, still trying to catch his breath. You feel nervous, the coach asked, staring at Corey, as if trying to see the nervousness in his eyes. No, not really, just excited. Good, that's what we want. Mr. Wellner seemed very pleased. Just remember, don't push it. Easy does it. He turned away from Corey and let out a loud groan. Get up, Tobin. You can rest later. Arnie had just done the backflip to finish his mat routine and had landed flat on his backside. The 20 or 30 spectators in the bleachers were laughing their heads off. Arnie's face turned bright scarlet as he pulled himself up and slumped off the mat. Coach Wellner closed his eyes and shook his head disgustedly. Arnie's slip wasn't going to help the Shadyside team score, and the floor routine was the best part of Arnie's program. He was a complete klutz on the rings, and his parallel bar work was uneven to say the least. The Matawan guys were midgets compared to Corey and his teammates, but that gave them an advantage. They were light and strong and agile. A guy like Arnie should be playing tackle on the football team, Corey thought. Whatever made him want to be a gymnast? Whatever made Arnie decide to do anything? He was one of the flakiest guys Corey had ever known. He just grinned his way through life, seemingly without ever having a serious thought cross his mind. Okay, Brooks, Coach Wellner's voice broke into Corey's thoughts. Go show 'em how it's done. Corey took a deep breath and headed to the rings. For some reason, they always looked so much higher at a real competition than in practice. He shut the world out as he started his routine. He didn't need his brain. The moves were all locked in his muscles. After practicing these moves thousands and thousands of times, he was like a machine, a smoothly running machine. Okay, up and over. Very smooth, Corey. Now faster. Get ready. Here comes the hard part. Up, up. And he saw Anna sitting in the bleachers. Was it really Anna? No, it couldn't be. Could it? And over, and again. Stop. Reverse. No, it was another blonde girl. The eyes. Those were her eyes. Yes, it was Anna. What a surprise! She was staring up at him with those blue eyes. She's watching me, he thought. She came to watch me. He stared back at her, and he slipped and dropped hard to the floor. He didn't feel any pain. He was just confused. He didn't really fall, did he? He didn't really blow the whole routine just because a certain girl had caused him to lose his concentration. I'm falling for her, he said aloud, laughing as he slowly climbed to his feet. What's so funny, Brooks? Coach Wellner was shouting. I'm falling for her, Corey repeated to himself. It was the second time he had fallen because of her, the second time he had embarrassed himself in front of a lot of people. Was that true love or what? What's so funny, Brooks? Coach Wellner looked concerned. Are you hysterical or something? You didn't hit your head, did you? I'm okay, Corey said, kicking the edge of a mat. I just slipped, that's all. There'll be other matches, Coach Wellner said. He suddenly looked very tired. This one's a comedy act. Go shower, Brooks, then go home and forget about today. Right, Coach. Corey looked up to the bleachers. He remembered just where she was sitting, in the center of the third row. But she wasn't there now. He stared at an empty space in the row. His heart sank. Had she been there in the first place? He hadn't imagined her, had he? Was he cracking up because of this girl? No, of course not. I have to talk with her, he told himself. I have to call her again. Chapter 4. Corey stared at the calendar hanging over his desk. Saturday night. Saturday night, and I'm sitting up here alone in my room, Walkman blasting in my ears, staring at my desk, not even hearing the music, thinking about Anna Corwin. A guy could get pretty depressed, he told himself. He tore off the Walkman headphones and tossed them onto the desk. Anna, Anna, Anna. It's spelled the same both ways. Brilliant, Corey. Just brilliant. Your mind really is turning to cheese, isn't it? He knew he had to stop thinking about her. But how could he? She kept floating into his thoughts no matter what he did. He had liked other girls before, but never like this. He leaned over and grabbed the phone. I'll ask her to a movie or something, he told himself. If I can just get to know her a little, maybe I won't be so crazy, so obsessed. Those eyes, that whisper of a voice, as faint as the wind. No, stop. I can't call her on a Saturday night. You can't call a girl on a Saturday night. She's probably out. I'll try her anyway, he decided. She seemed so pleased when I talked to her at her locker. No, I can't call her. She'll be insulted. She'll think I'm calling on a Saturday night because I know she wouldn't be out with somebody. I'll call David instead. Maybe he and I can go down to the mall and check out the action. No, David can't go anywhere. He's hobbling around with crutches because of his ankle. Call her, Corey. She'll be thrilled to hear from you. Oh, sure. Thrilled. The klutz who always falls on his face when she looks at him. He put down the receiver. Not tonight. No way. I know. I'll catch her at her locker on Monday. Maybe ask her to the basketball game next Friday. He felt a lot better. He had a plan. Now what should I do? The clock on his desk said 8:20. His parents had a hot Scrabble game going downstairs with Lisa's parents. Corey decided maybe he'd wander next door and see if Lisa was doing anything. "Lisa home?" he called into the den, pulling on a sweatshirt. "Yes, she is," Mrs. Bloom called. "Why don't you go over and keep her company? She was kinda down in the dumps because she didn't have a date tonight." "Okay," Corey said, grabbing a bag of potato chips and a box of chocolate chip cookies off the kitchen shelf to take with him. There was never anything to eat at the Bloom's house. That was probably the real reason Lisa was depressed. She was probably starving, he figured. I can talk to her about Anna, Corey told himself. He was eager to discuss Anna with someone. Whenever he brought up the subject with David or Arnie, they just teased him and made bad jokes. "How did the match with Madawan go?" Mr. Bloom called. "Don't ask him that," Corey heard his mom say. "Don't ask me that," Corey repeated. "He fell on his keister," Corey's dad said in a whisper loud enough to be heard across the street. They all laughed. "Thanks, Dad," Corey said. "Thanks a bunch." Holding the cookies and potato chips in one arm, he pulled open the back door and stepped out into a frosty night. A sliver of moon was partially hidden by thin wisps of clouds. That moon is so pale, he thought. It's the same color as Anna's hair. Uh-oh, Corey. You better watch it, man. You're starting to see her everywhere, even in the moon. You're getting weird, man. Too weird. You've got to cool it. He had to knock 3 times before Lisa opened the back door. She was wearing cut-off jeans and an enormous old white shirt that must have been her dad's. "Oh, hi," she said, sighing. "It's only you." "Who do you think?" "I thought it was a burglar. You know, someone exciting." She backed up so that he could walk in. She smiled. "I'm only kidding. I'm glad you came over." He held up the food packages. "Now I'm really glad," she said, grabbing them both out of his hands. "I'm starving." He followed her into the den and sat down on the brown leather couch against the wall. She poured the potato chips into a big ceramic bowl and sat down next to him. "Another fabulous Saturday night." "What were you doing?" he asked, grabbing a handful of chips and dropping them down into his mouth one by one from above. They tasted better that way, he thought. "Nothing. I rented a movie, but I haven't started it yet. Want to watch it with me?" "I don't know. What is it?" She walked over to the counter under the TV and held up a video box tape. "A Star Trek movie?" He gave her a double thumbs down. "I'm not into Star Trek." "Neither am I," she said, sighing again. "I got to the video store late. Everything was gone." She slumped back down onto the couch, closer to him this time. They both reached out for more potato chips at the same time. Her hand grabbed his. She quickly let go. He didn't notice that she looked embarrassed. "So how are things, Corey?" she asked, turning to face him. Their knees touched. "Not great," he said, shrugging. She put a hand on his arm. He could feel the warmth through his sweatshirt. "Poor baby. What's your problem?" "Oh, I don't know. Nothing really. Everything." She tisk-tisked. They didn't say anything for a while. She moved her hand up to his hair and began to finger his curls. "I heard about the gymnastics match," she said softly. "I blew it," he muttered, shaking his head. "I just blew it." She leaned against him, still rolling her finger lightly in his hair. "Don't be so tough on yourself, Corey. It's only the first competition." She shoved the potato chip ball aside and scooted even closer to him. "Anna Corwin was there," he said. "I saw her watching me, and I was so surprised, I guess I lost my concentration." "What?" "I said Anna Corwin was there. I saw those blue eyes staring at me, and—" "Creep." "What?" "Nothing. I didn't say anything." She pulled away from him and jumped to her feet. He looked up, bewildered. Why did she look so angry? "Have you ever talked with Anna?" he asked. She stood over him and crossed her arms in front of her. "Corey, I think you should go home." "Huh? I just got here." "No, really, go home, okay?" "But why?" I'm just not in the mood for company, okay? I'll see you in school Monday. I just don't feel like talking tonight." He got up slowly, still confused. "Okay, sorry you're not feeling well. Should I leave the chips and cookies?" She glared at him. She picked up the box of cookies. For a second, he thought she was going to fling it at him, but she put it in his hand. "Take the cookies. I'll finish the chips. What the heck? Might as well get fat. Why not?" "Glad I could cheer you up," he said, trying to get her to smile. She didn't. A few seconds later, he was back outside, heading over the frosty hard grass to his house. A few seconds after that, he was back in his room, sitting on his bed, trying to figure out what to do for the rest of the night. What was Lisa's problem, he wondered. It wasn't like her to be so moody. She wasn't depressed just because she didn't have a date. Something else had to be bothering her. But what? He glanced at his desk clock. 9:25. His eye fell on a yellow pad beside the phone. He walked over to the desk and stared down at Anna's phone number. Without stopping to think about it, without giving himself time to get nervous, Time to talk himself out of it, he punched her number. It rang once, twice, the sound seeming very far away even though it was just on the other side of town. After the third ring, he heard a click. Someone picked it up. A soft, female voice said, "Corwin's. Hello? Hello, Anna?" There was a long pause. Corey listened to the static on the line. "Who?" the woman's voice repeated. "May I speak to Anna, please?" "Oh." The woman let out a loud gasp. More silence. Then Corey heard a loud screech in the background. What was that awful sound? It sounded like a girl screaming. Yes, must be the TV, he told himself. It had to be the TV. "Why are you calling here asking for Anna?" the woman demanded angrily. "Well, I just—" Again, Corey heard the girl shrieking in the background. "Let me talk. It's for me. I know it's for me." The woman ignored the girl's cries. "Why do you call to torture me like this?" she asked Corey, her voice trembling. "Well, is Anna there?" Corey asked. "No, no, no," the woman insisted. "You know Anna isn't here. You know she isn't. Stop. Please stop." He heard the beginning of another scream. Then the phone clicked off. Chapter 5. Corey listened to the hum of the dial tone for a while as he waited for his heart to stop pounding. He played the conversation with the woman over and over again in his mind until the words became a blur. And over the blur he heard the screams, the girl's screams of protest in the background. "Let me talk. It's for me. I know it's for me." What was going on there? Corey's mind whirred with crazy, frightening thoughts. What were they doing to Anna? Was Anna being held prisoner in her own house? Were they torturing her? "You've seen too many bad movies," he told himself. "You're being ridiculous." Then, what was the explanation? "I'll go over there," he said aloud. The idea just popped into his mind. It seemed simple enough. He glanced at the desk clock. It was just a little after 10, still early. He examined himself in a mirror on his closet door, straightened the sleeves on his sweatshirt, pushed his dark curly hair back from his forehead with his hands, and headed out of his room and down the stairs toward the den. He stopped halfway down the stairs. Hold on a minute. Do I really want to go to Fear Street? By myself? What if something horrible really is happening in that house? What if those screams were real? The big local news story of a few weeks before suddenly flashed into his mind. A family of 3 had been found murdered in the Fear Street woods. No one was reported missing. No one came forward to identify them. Just another Fear Street unsolved murder. Corey decided to call David and ask him to come along. David was sure to be sitting home, staring at his ankle, bored out of his mind. He needed a little excitement. To Corey's surprise, David thought the idea was a little strange. "Let me get this straight, Brooks," he said after Corey had explained their mission. "You want to drive over to Fear Street and break in on someone's horror movie to find a girl who wasn't there in the first place." "Right," Corey said. "Okay, sounds good to me," David replied. "Pick me up in 10 minutes. "Make it 5, Corey said, and hung up before David could change his mind. Good old David, Corey thought. I can always count on him to be as stupid as I am. The Scrabble game was still going strong downstairs in the den. The board was nearly filled, and all 4 adults sat staring at it in silence, concentrating on finding a usable open space. "I'm going out for a while," he told his dad. "Which car can I take?" "Kind of late, isn't it?" his mother asked without looking up from the board. She had a letter square in her hand, a blank, which she was rolling over and over between her fingers. "It's only 10. "Take the Taurus," his father said. "Don't take your mother's car." "Where are you going?" his mother insisted. "Just over to David's." It was partly true. "Are you going to make a word or what?" Mrs. Bloom asked Corey's mom, with that impatient tone everyone gets near the end of an endless Scrabble game. "How's David doing?" Mr. Brooks asked. "Bad," Corey told him. "He's on crutches. He's pretty depressed." "Poor guy," Mrs. Bloom muttered, staring at her letters. "I pass," Mrs. Brooks said, sighing unhappily. Corey grabbed the keys off the front counter and headed out to the car. David lived about 6 blocks away in the northern corner of North Hills, almost to the river. It was a 2-minute drive. Corey knocked on the front door and waited. It took a long time for David to get to the door. "Sorry, man, I can't go with you," was his greeting. "What do you mean?" "I mean I can't go. My mom won't let me." He looked embarrassed. "Hi, Corey," David's mother called from behind David in the hallway. "I really don't want David to go out tonight. He's got to stay off the ankle. Besides, he's getting a cold. You understand." "Sure, Mrs. Metcalf." Corey said, unable to hide his disappointment. A cold. He grinned at David. We wouldn't want Mama's angel to catch a nasty cold, would we? David rolled his eyes and shrugged. Give me a break. I'll call you later and let you know what happened on Fear Street, Corey said. If you don't hear from me, send out the Marines or the National Guard. Have you seen Poltergeist? David asked. If you go in that house, you might be sucked right into the TV screen. Corey didn't laugh. You think this is all a big joke, don't you? David gave him an exaggerated wide grin. I think it's a riot. Well, Corey turned and stomped down the flagstone walk back toward his car. You're probably right. Corey drove south on Park Drive and headed toward Fear Street. It was a cold and raw night. Thick clouds of fog drifted rapidly down from the hills. He turned up the heater and pushed on the radio. He needed some loud music to keep up his spirits. It's a Q-Rock Beatles blast, the disc jockey screamed enthusiastically. 24 hours of Beatles hits in alphabetical order. Corey laughed. Why would anyone want to listen to music in alphabetical order? He wished David were there to share the laugh. He wished David were there, period. He really didn't like the idea of roaming around Fear Street on a cold, foggy night on his own. Oh, well, I won't get out of the car, he told himself. I'll just drive past the house and see what's going on. The fog grew thicker as he passed Canyon Road and entered the valley. It was always misty at night down in this part of town, even in the summer. The car headlights seemed to hit the swirling mist and bounce back onto the windshield. He tried the brights, but they were worse. An oncoming car swerved to miss him. Other drivers couldn't see either, Corey realized, a thought that didn't make him feel any more confident. This is a mistake, he told himself, but the fog lightened as he turned down Mill Road. A small Toyota, jammed with at least 6 teenagers, honked as it sped past him. They were probably coming from the deserted mill at the end of the road, a favorite makeout spot for Shadyside kids. The dream about Anna, in which she was kissing his face, flashed into his mind. He turned the radio up. Q-Rock was up to the L's. They were playing Love Me Do. Tapping his hands against the wheel to the music, recreating the sexy dream in his mind, he nearly missed a turn onto Fear Street. He realized where he was and hit the brake hard, making a skidding turn across the wet pavement. It seemed to grow darker as soon as he turned onto the narrow, curving street. Tall maples and oaks lined both sides, their bare, creaking branches nearly forming an archway over the road, tangled limbs blocking much of the pale gray light from the street lamps. He couldn't see it in the dark, but he knew that he was passing Simon Fear's burned-out mansion. He sped up and turned up the heater. The houses, rambling old Victorians for the most part, were set far back from the road behind unkempt hedges or overlooking lawns still thick with swirling brown leaves. How am I ever going to find which house is hers? Corey asked himself, wiping the inside of the windshield clear with his sweatshirt sleeve. He squinted out through the smeared glass, trying unsuccessfully to see a street number. What was her number? He asked himself, beginning to panic. Had he driven all this way without even knowing her house number? No, it was 444. He remembered. He pulled the car over to the side of the road and shifted into park. He turned off the headlights and waited for his eyes to adjust to the darkness. He could actually see a little better with the lights off. He turned off the engine, opened the door, and slid out of the car. If he was going to find her house, he'd have to do it on foot. The numbers were on the front doors of the houses. There was no way he could read them from the car. He shivered. The sweatshirt didn't offer much protection from the damp cold. He took a deep breath. The air smelled sour, decaying leaves most likely. An animal howled nearby, a long, mournful wail. It doesn't sound like a dog, he told himself, looking in the direction of the sound but seeing nothing. Could it be a wolf? The animal howled again. It sounded a little closer. Corey suddenly remembered being on Fear Street before. He was a kid, 9 or 10. His friend Ben had dared him to walk in the woods. Somehow he had gotten the courage to try, but he had walked for only a few minutes when something grabbed his shoulder. Maybe it was a tree branch. Maybe not. He had run screaming down the street. He had never been so scared in his life. Stop thinking about it, he said aloud. His sneakers crunched over the gravel that lined the side of the road. He came to a metal mailbox tilting at an angle toward the street. Squinting in the darkness, he tried to read the faded name on its side, but it was too dark and the letters were all peeled away. The animal howled again. This time it sounded farther away. The wind suddenly stopped. The only sound now was a crunching of his sneakers. He passed a large weather-beaten house, its window shutters peeling and hanging at crazy angles. For some reason, a rusting ship's anchor rested in the very center of the patchy lawn. An old station wagon, its rear bumper missing, 2 of its windows covered with cardboard, stood in the drive. Nice night for a stroll, Corey told himself. He started humming Love Me Do to himself. Then he started singing it. Why not? There was no one around to hear him. Fear Street was deserted. Nothing moved except the scrabbling brown leaves driven by the shifting wind. One house was brightly lit. A porch light cast bright golden beams over the lawn, and all of the downstairs and second-floor rooms seemed to be lighted. Was that Anna's house? No. The sign on the porch said 442. The wind picked up again, sending a chill down Corey's back. He shoved his hands into his jeans pockets to try to warm them. He had a sudden hunch and turned back to see if the car was okay. He couldn't see it. The street had curved too far. Should he go back? No, he'd come this far. The next house had to be Anna's, if she lived there. He began walking faster. The pavement beneath his sneakers was wet and slippery, and he slipped a couple of times but quickly regained his balance. A ragged, low hedge bordered the yard of the next house. Was this the Corwin house? Corey couldn't find a mailbox. Oh, there it was, down on the street. It had fallen off its pole. He picked up the mailbox. There was a number on its side, 444. This was it. He dropped it back to the street and wiped his wet hands on his jeans. The house was completely dark and silent. No sign of life. No car in the driveway. Corey peered over the low hedge to the front porch. A screen door hung open, banging against the side of the house when the wind blew. An overturned lawn chair was beside it. Corey stepped to the edge of the drive. What now? Go up to the house and knock on the door? There doesn't seem to be anyone home. He looked at the overgrown shrubs, the thick covering of unraked leaves, and tangles of waist-high grass and weeds. It didn't look as if anyone had lived there for years. It's got to be the wrong house, he thought. Then he heard something moving across the gravel, a footstep. He listened. The wind picked up. He couldn't hear anything. It must have been leaves, or an animal of some sort. He decided to walk back to the car. There was no point standing out in the cold staring at a deserted old house. He heard another footstep, then another. Someone was behind him. Someone was following him, coming up fast. Corey picked up his pace, started to jog, hoping to leave the sounds behind, hoping it was just leaves, just a dog, just a lonely field cat. But the footsteps came faster. Someone was chasing him. Someone was right behind him. He started to turn around when a hand grabbed his shoulder.